name is Kelly Goslin. I am this summer's archivist at the Anglican Diocese of Ontario, and I'm here to present to you the Archives Showcase. Today we will be examining a remarkable set of architectural drawings from Barriefield, Ontario, at our very own St. Mark's Church. At the Archives of the Diocese, we are very fortunate to have the majority of our materials sourced from our parishes. This includes personal correspondence, parish papers, maps, art, and many of our oversized documents being fantastic early architectural drawings for our many ecclesiastical buildings. In this case, we have two original drawings from 1843 of the proposed structure of St. Mark's Church in Barriefield, as well as a facsimile copy of the original call for building that was placed into the community to promote the idea of constructing this building. And we also have the three first original land deeds and the act of consecration. Barriefield as a community began initially as the product of increased calls during the 18-teens and 1820s for the establishment of residency and community for workers affiliated with the Navy dockyards as well as with Fort Henry. In 1814, in the depths of conflict with the United States, the Honorable Richard Cartwright saw an opportunity to settle east of Kingston, and he purchased the ability to separate the western hillside facing the river into commercial and residential lots. These were originally part of his loyalist tracts of land, and it was quickly applied to the needs of the local workers. By this time, Cartwright had also constructed a rough-sawn oak ferry that ran between Kingston and Barriefield, which had originally been intended for workers to use to get from the city centre into the dockyards where they were employed. However, with the establishment of Barriefield and the purchasing of these residential and commercial lots, these workers began to flow into the community, not only seeking employment, but also seeking habitation. The role of Fort Henry as well as the Navy in the creation of Barriefield was so significant that in 1820, it was named Barriefield after Commodore Robert Barrie, who was at the time the commissioner of our dockyard. In 1829, a permanent bridge was constructed between Kingston and Barriefield, which lent a huge amount of help to the cohesion of the two communities and meant that transit between the two centers was much easier for both military as well as civil needs. After that, Barriefield became the municipal center for Pittsburgh Township, and it was increasingly vital for both the military and commercial projects of the neighboring region. By the early 1840s, Barriefield as a community expressed need for an English church that they could attend. The Navy played a pivotal role in lobbying for this construction and helped draw the people of Barriefield together to vote and decide on where this would be implemented. On April 3rd of 1843, the interested parties who looked to construct what would be St. Mark's Church all convened at the home of James Medley, and they discussed the possibility of creating their space. Luckily for them, John Bennett Marks, who was a naval paymaster, had donated a parcel of land that could be used for this purpose. It was directly neighboring his own family's farm fields and was located at the far edge of Barriefield as the proper town. The Gothic structure was built with the aid of funds that were actually promoted and distributed by the Royal Admiralty, and it was also helped with the individual efforts not only of labor but also of finances from the people of Barriefield, regardless of their economic status. The affiliation of the church with the Navy was entirely communal, for this church not only revitalized the community as a civic property, but also furthermore as a spiritual one for the many officers and soldiers who were located both at the naval base as well as at Fort Henry for the Army. Barriefield's new St. Mark's Church was constructed precisely as a sacred space for the community to use. It was designed in 1843 by the architect Alfred Brunel and was constructed in the form that we see very much in these drawings. The community around it continued to flourish. It had a broad variety of diverse structures, both residential as well as commercial. And despite being a registered suburb of the city of Kingston, it was encouraged to be autonomous like other communities such as Portsmouth and Garden Island. It did achieve a little bit of notoriety in the 1840s and 1850s for the wanton impropriety that was displayed at its many inns and public houses. Unlicensed drinking houses during this time in the region were blamed for increases in prostitution, in pauperism, as well as intemperance. As a result, Barriefield, along with Portsmouth, Garden Island, and many other remote suburb communities, were targeted as sources for this. However, despite that objection, Barriefield remarkably retained its reputation, much in thanks to the significance and vitality of its Anglican church, of its many residences, and of its dockyards, particularly boat building by the Knapp family. However, unfortunately for Barriefield as a commercial center, boat building became increasingly unpopular and unsustainable in the beginning of the 20th century. By the 1950s, the community became solely residential, with the final general store being closed in the mid-1960s. Despite this change, however, Barriefield has continued to flourish. In 1980, it was the first village in Ontario to be designated as a Heritage Conservation District, and its community has continuously rallied for its preservation and its celebration. It has been commemorated in the book Barriefield Village, 200 Years of Village Life. Its schoolhouse has become a museum, and St. Mark's Anglican Church remains a thriving and actively engaged Anglican point that Barriefield as a whole is very proud to possess. Join us next week when we will be exploring a little bit further from home and a little further from time in some remarkable maps from the 18th century.